I'm a fan of fantasy, so I listen to Easy and Alan on their Just a Fantasy Fan podcast. Now here's Easy and Chris Allen.
And here we are. And welcome to Fantasy Fan Sportscast. Just one of the great shows on the Sportscrew Radio Network. And follow them for all their fantasy information. On iTunes, Sportscrew Radio. On Twitter, at Sportscrew Radio. And we're live on YouTube and Facebook. So feel free to, make any comments using their chat rooms, and we'll post them or answer your questions while we do the show. And welcome, Chris. It's a Wednesday. It's been a couple of weeks, and hardly anything's gone on in the world, let alone fantasy football. But I don't know. I guess we would not be right if we didn't say this. What are we? March the 25th, 2020. So if anyone listened to this some other time, the world is coming to an end, but me and you are still going to try to hold it together and talk about fantasy football. And are you being safe? And are you staying 6 feet apart from any living human being?
Other than my family, yes, that is correct.
Oh, I hate my family. I'm 12 feet away from my family, 6 feet away from everyone else.
Gotcha.
I'm just saying. Everyone's well and healthy.
Yes, at our household, everyone is well. Everybody is healthy. A little stir crazy for being cooped up inside, but other than that, we're doing all right.
So the family's cooped up. This is now a personal question. Are you quarantined at home? Are you going to work?
No, my company had a mandatory telework policy that we enacted actually 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago actually. So yeah, I've been home for since I want to say almost 2 weeks now. 2 weeks. I've been home. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, good. Stay safe. I mean, you know where I work. I work a small company. There's just three of us. We're in the telecommunications business, and we're kind of a necessity. Been sending a lot of equipment to hospitals and things like that. And we've been busy. Today changed a little bit, so we'll see what happens.
Well, I'm sure.
Well, the problem now is getting product and stuff. So.
Well, yeah. I think that's the same for a lot of small businesses. I happened to I went down to a certain small business yesterday afternoon to meet with a mutual friend of ours, and he was mentioning something similar about getting supplies in.
Yeah. It's kind of a crazy time, and it is. I mean, sports. Like I said, I'm a fantasy baseball guy. There's no fantasy baseball right now. There's no nothing. Yeah. I mean, and
esports, and that's about it. That's what we got.
Esports, and I'm not into that necessarily. Now, maybe I think I would watch. I would watch a football game, let's say a Madden game, if they did it like a real game. I think if they televised it and act like it was a real game and something like that, maybe. And if I knew there were two players controlled, meaning not computer generated or whatever, meaning give me two really good guys, and I might watch that. It's not something I've done in the past, but I might try. Now I got to say, I'm old enough where this might affect me. I'm in that range where.
Oh yeah.
The correct. Don't say it so simple like that. Like,
I'm just realizing that.
Yes, I am in the age where we're supposed to be cautious, but I'm not a big news guy. But I'm into this. I mean, I don't know if into this, meaning I'm concerned. I have an elderly father-in-law that lives with me. I have a daughter that has an immune system problem. So I have as little sports knowledge in my head right now as I've had in a long time.
Yeah.
I normally listen to fantasy football or baseball shows almost all day long. I am now listening to CNN and some of the other stuff now all day long. So, forgive me if I don't know everything that's going on right now in football, but it's just one of those things. I mean,
priorities.
It's priorities it's just one of those things. I've been alive almost 60 years. This is the first, this is a big change. So, all right. I don't know. Then, it's kind of hard to where to take it because so much has happened. But obviously, one of the big things that's happened, obviously, is, there's been some change with the New England Patriots. That's where
just a couple.
Start. I mean,
some small changes.
This is a big thing. We're finally gonna get to see what is it, Bill Belichick or Stefan Gostkowski. I mean, it's a long time.
You nailed it.
3 Super Bowls, a couple of them were wins on his feet.
Right.
And now we're going to get to see, was it the kicker or was it the coach?
Well, we were asking the same thing about Adam Vinatieri before it was Gostkowski. So it's always been the question, the age-old question has it been the kicker or has it been the Patriot way?
We're now going to find out.
Right.
Was it the kicker? Or
we need to know this.
We do. Or is it Bill? And I'm pretty excited. I can see now where Buffalo and Miami, even the Jets maybe now have some hope.
Yeah.
But the Patriots are going to struggle now, maybe in the kicking department.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely something again. And I play in all kicker leagues. So this is a big thing for fantasy.
It's huge.
Chris, give me a little bit of your analysis here on what you think the future is going to bring. And, are we going to get an answer?
I think that's really the big question. And actually, a good friend of mine and writer for 538, Josh Hermsmeyer, he actually just put out a piece earlier today asking that very question as to, we'll get to answer, like, has it been Belichick or has it been all of the other, I guess, the pieces that they've had over the last 20 years or so? And I honestly, I don't know. I guess the easiest way to look at it is that I think the way that Josh phrased it, and I do like it, is that greatness for a coach has sometimes been measured in his coaching tree. And for the life of me, I can't think of a good former New England coach that has gone out and actually done well. So I think there's something to it that it was just, a lot of it was the players around him. A lot of it was obviously Tom Brady. But in Bill Belichick, he's a great coach. Don't get me wrong, but it's just kind of shocking that no other former New England Patriot, like offensive coach, offensive assistant, coordinator, defensive coordinator, whatever the case may be, that has gone out and coached for another team, they haven't done well. And so I think there's some credence to the idea that, Belichick was a great coach, but he needed Brady in order to get to where they are and the dynasty that they built, which is now ended. And
his system and philosophy, which you have to give him credit for that, but it worked well with the group of people he's had, right? And when you're set in those, and I've heard that a lot this last week or so, where Bill's the one who he'll pull the trigger quickly, and he'd rather get rid of a player 1 year early than 1 year late, and I've heard all that, but that's easy to say when you've had great players in the skilled spots. That have allowed you to then tell the other guys, the other Pro Bowlers that, we're going to cut you early, or we're going to get rid of that big paycheck early. Yeah. And we talked about this in the past, and because of their success, they've always been able to get free agents at a decent price. They've been able to get people at lower dollars to come here to get, a championship, but obviously free agency right now, that hasn't happened either. They're not getting players. So no, it's kind of crazy and kind of exciting, I guess, that we're going to see these changes, and, we'll go from there. And in that same division, you have the Bills. They've made moves. The Dolphins have made a few moves. Right. I'm out of the loop. I know the Jets have lost a few players. I don't know that the Jets have signed any, to be real honest. So they brought in Rashad Perriman. So they lost Robbie Anderson, and then they brought in Rashad Perriman. Yeah, there you go. All right. So they haven't made any moves, but so we'll go with that. I don't know. So let's go to the other end. For fantasy, I'm right now taking Tampa Bay wide receivers out of my mix, meaning if when ADP comes around and I'm drafted and all that, I will probably pick the guy one higher, one lower than the wide receivers right now. Tampa Bay, I'm not sold. I think they're good wide receivers, but I like the other young guy that was flinging the ball all around. I don't think Tom Brady's a flanger that much. I think it hurts their wide receivers. I know there's a lot of people excited. I think as a team, it's a good thing. I think they're going to have enough to score. But I think for fantasy, I'm not. I got a feeling that those two wide receivers, are going to go a little high, and I'm not sold on them because of this.
No, and why would you be? I mean, if you were to look at just this past season, Jameis Winston, he entered the record, right? He entered the 30-30 club, right? 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. You know how many seasons it would take for you to get to Tom Brady throwing 30 interceptions?
Oh, I know, a bunch, because he does
4.
right.
It took the last 4 seasons of Tom Brady's interceptions in order for him to get to 30 interceptions.
Right.
And you got to think it's not just the turnovers, right? It's what the turnovers cause. The turnovers cause the opposing teams to score points. That means that the offense now has to catch up, and now they're in negative game scripts, which has always lent itself more to the passing game than the running game. So if you have it's not just about the fact that Tom Brady is not as error prone. It's just the fact that now scoring opportunities are now going to decrease. I mean, it's not the same as the 2017, 2018 Patriots, where they were putting up, 30 some odd points a game. I mean, this is not the way that they're running.
Still rushing touchdowns.
Exactly.
Over the years they've had, they've been a pretty.
2017, I thought it was the season that LeGarrette Blount wound up having like double-digit touchdowns as they made their way to the Super Bowl.
And anyone who had him on their fantasy team had a great season, but they didn't draft him. Yeah, but they didn't draft him. Think of that.
Right. It just happened to work out that way.
It was a luck fantasy. It's one of those luck things.
But it still worked out that way, that a lot of their touchdowns came on the ground. I mean, Tom Brady still got his. He was still a top 12 quarterback, so on and so forth. But, I mean, we can't expect Chris Godwin and Mike Evans to be number 1 wide receivers again, like this season. To me, it's more one or the other. I can't see them both finishing within the top 12 because just from the natural reduction in the number of targets that are going to occur across the entire team. Right.
I agree. And I know I've heard a few people this week, a little bit I've paid attention, but this offense is about throwing the ball, but this offense hasn't had Tom Brady, Well,
that offense was always playing from behind.
This coach hasn't had Tom Brady.
Right.
I got a feeling Tom Brady brings a little respect even to a coaching staff, right? I mean, isn't a coaching staff even more willing to say, and then what do you think, TB? And if he says, I just think we're throwing the ball too much. Okay, we'll stop. I do think he'll bring that to the table.
Right.
So I think for fantasy, even though that was the big trade or the big signing all week, I don't think fantasy wise that one did much. It didn't really boost anybody or hurt anybody on the Patriots anyway, because, no one likes the Patriots offense right now for fantasy. And if anything, it bumps the Tampa Bay guys down a little bit. I mean, I don't think I bump them a ton, but I'm probably not going to have them unless they fall. And I don't think they're going to fall. So, we'll see.
I mean, I get the idea of drafting for talent, like in early best balls, because I've been doing quite a few through this month and part of the last month when they first opened. Is you want to draft on talent, and if you believe that Mike Evans is a good wide receiver, then you want to draft Mike Evans. I get that. If you think that Chris Godwin is a good receiver and you want to draft him at his value, and he's going to play the slot role, he's going to pick up some of that Julian Edelman role now. Okay, I get that. But to have the expectation, again, like I was mentioning earlier, that both of them are going to wind up meeting that value, to me, it's hard for me to try and, I guess, split my shares. It's almost like if you draft one, if you don't get one, you draft the other one. And it's just, I can't bank on that. Yeah. I can't expect that to happen. I mean, just based off what we saw last season. There's another stat for you. Jameis Winston threw 214. He had 214 attempts when the team was 7 points or behind. So like playing in a negative game script. Tom Brady threw 140, like in the same situation. I mean, it's almost 100 passes different, like three full games difference,
right,
in the number of attempts. And if you think that, I mean, the Tampa Bay's defense has now improved. I mean, with the additions that they made through free agency, and they brought back a number of their starters from last season. They've also added to. They get a couple of corners, or at least they get one corner, like one decent corner, and it's over because their front seven is just ridiculous. So if you think that now their defense is good, they add Tom Brady, who's not as errant of a passer as Jameis Winston by far, then the opportunities now for all of their pass catchers now they're just diminished. They have to.
Right. What would surprise you more? Tampa Bay offense, great fantasy offense, or the Tampa Bay offense being just horrible? I mean, I think it's going to be in the middle, but I'm just curious if it could swing one way or the other. Which way would you think it's more likely to swing? That this offense just doesn't take off like people are thinking, or that it just is, we're amazed that, oh my God, Tom Brady could throw the ball around? You know, which do you think is more likely to happen?
I think it's more likely that the offense is going to be good, but it's going to be like the Patriots offense of old, where you don't know.
You just answered that like you're saying it's just going to be what we all think. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
My point is, if it surprises you one way or the other, that's what I'm saying.
It would surprise me if
it's bad. It's not. If it doesn't surprise me, it's going to be here. I think I agree with you. But if the end of the season you go, man, I missed that one, do you think you're going to miss it high or low?
I'll miss it low, I guess. Okay. Is what I think. I'd be more surprised, or maybe I'm saying I'll miss it high, because I'd rather invest in those players. I'd rather invest in the idea that Tom Brady is still good, versus I'd be more surprised if Tom Brady needs more time to, because here's the real reality, right? In our world now, where the COVID-19 is completely shutting down these NFL facilities, right, and keeping players. This is the time right now where you would think that a new quarterback with a new wide receiver in a new offensive system would be meeting with his wide receivers in order to get on the same page with them. So let's see how long this, all of these facilities are supposed to be shut down. And if Tom Brady is unable to develop that chemistry, unable to tell Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, OJ Howard what he expects of them, where he wants them to be, the timing for all their routes, and then we get into week 1 and it's off, week 2 it's off, and it takes them till week 6 or 7 in order to get in a rhythm, but they're already 2 games behind the Saints, who have now invested into multiple players, and they're bringing back their defense. And now they're sitting behind Carolina, who might have hit on Teddy Bridgewater, and they're still doing well. I mean, who knows? They could be sitting back like 3rd place in the division, and they don't even get into the playoffs.
Right.
I mean, that would be a surprise, right, but I'm saying it's not outside of the realm of possibility.
I guess in my mind, I would be more surprised if Tom Brady throws 27 touchdowns, if Tom Brady throws 4,800 yards, if Tom Brady, the offense scores a ton of points and they just roll over. I would be more surprised that. I would be less surprised if we just go, you know what? Thought they'd be okay, but I didn't think they'd be this bad. I'm just saying, that's my point. I'd be more surprised if they do great, because I've seen this. I've seen it. I've seen the Joe Montanas go to Kansas City. I've seen, Joe Namath go to the Rams.
But we also saw Peyton Manning go to the Broncos.
Yeah, but it didn't happen the first year, right? It was the second. Wasn't it the second year?
No, I thought it was the first year they came. Well, they didn't win the Super Bowl, but they came out and they were a juggernaut.
I thought that was the second year.
I thought that was that. Yeah, I thought it was the first season when he got in. It was Eric Decker, DT, and
that's
Julius
right.
Thomas.
Okay, so that was the first year where they, he won the Super Bowl when they weren't nearly as good offensively. Actually,
right. I thought it was the first season though. Okay. They came in, they were like, "Holy crap!" Like he still got it. So it's possible.
But he came off of an injured season where he didn't play, meaning he did come, like I said, and he he never had the low numbers Tom Brady's had in the last 5 years.
Mhm.
You know,
But we all thought he was washed
until the end when Manning couldn't throw it all. But
right.
you know,
but we all thought that Peyton was washed. We didn't think he could come back.
Okay,
Doctors
we
were
thought
saying
he was
could
washed
do it.
because of the injury. The year before he got injured, he still threw the ball all over the place in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Where Tom Brady's not done that for a long time.
Yeah,
What, Randy Moss? Is
go
Randy
back and
Moss?
say that it might have been the players. I mean, he was throwing to Philip Dorsett. I mean, Julian Edelman was banged up. Gronk had retired. I mean, people could retrofit a narrative in order to say why Tom Brady was as reserved or as how much.
Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be fun. I mean,
I think
interesting. I'm not a big Tampa Bay guy. I'll definitely be watching some Tampa Bay. Definitely Tampa Bay will be on some games.
Yeah, that's just a different, that whole market, right? Is just like, when was the last time the Tampa Bay was a team that you actively like wanted to watch? I mean, I would say it was like,
they were a Super Bowl team, late 90s?
What, when Warren Sapp was playing?
Yeah, Warren Sapp, all that. They won a Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, but it's been like, I want to say it's like been 20
a long
years.
time. I mean, longer than the Browns.
Well, yeah,
or not as long as the Browns. I mean, but
I'm just saying, of all the teams that he could have chosen. I mean, if the Colts were kind of beating down his door in order to make a run at him, the Chargers, I believe, were making a run at him. I mean, both. I mean, the Chargers not so much, but like Indianapolis for sure.
It's all the tax. It's the way the taxes are paid down there.
Yeah, I don't have to pay income tax.
Yeah. We know all that.
Yeah,
let's go. Let's go. Stay in that division. I said they're making some changes. Obviously, Buffalo, another big deal that happened. I mean, they went and got Diggs, which I find somewhat exciting. I think we're going to find out if their quarterback strength. He can't complain now. I'm excited about the Bills right now because now because I'm a John Brown guy. I think between John Brown and Diggs, it's going to open that up. We have a quarterback that can run the ball. I don't know. I'm kind of excited for what they've done. And then Miami, I'm kind of excited now for Jordan Howard. I know it's been a couple of years, but Miami, I don't know. Is Jordan Howard one of our next, there aren't that many anymore. Is he the next running back that's going to be in there for all 3 downs, maybe 280 touches, those kind of things? Is Jordan Howard capable of that? Is Miami now going to have a true running back fantasy guy that could be in the top 10?
I don't know about all that, because even if they do, I guess if you wanted to project volume for him at this point, I guess it's possible. As of right now, there's really there's nobody significant ahead of him.
There's nobody ahead of him. There's nobody behind him.
Right. And there's nobody behind him, I guess is what I was trying to say. Patrick Laird, Myles Gaskins, none of those guys are really threats.
It doesn't mean they don't draft somebody young. They got 4 picks in the first round.
I'm assuming that's what they do, though.
I got that. But
I'm thinking that's what they do, because it's just for how much they brought him in for. So let's see, he's 25, so he's not old or anything like that by running back standards, but it's just the skill set that he brings, and also their offensive line. I mean, for as much as they addressed in the offseason, it's improved, but it's really not to the point where a guy like Jordan Howard is going to make waves, because he's not really known for a dude that can juke, and he's not known for his agility. We'll just say that. Also not known for his pass catching ability either. So I would assume that they wind up bring in somebody that can kind of complement him, maybe work under him, and that if they have that dual. You just
described Fournette a year and a half ago.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Yeah, but now Fournette catches balls. Now he now catches balls. 1 yard, 2 yard passes, and is on the field all the time.
Right.
Jordan Howard to me is definitely someone, as of right now. Obviously, things can change after the draft and all that kind of stuff. But right now, Jordan Howard is one of those running backs that I'm penciling in. I'll definitely, I don't think his ADP is going to be high, but at the same time, I know, but that's my point. He's one of those I might jump around and steal, pop up around. I'll take a shot. I like running backs that are going to be on the field for 3 downs. There's not that many of them. If he's and I'm not saying he's my first or second running back, but somebody like that is your third running back.
Yeah, third, fourth, fifth.
Or even your fourth. If he goes, if in somebody's draft, if he's somebody, somebody gets him as a fifth running back, then, no one else is paying attention. But, and especially if you're going wide receiver, or something like that, and whatever. And now you're just picking a bunch of running backs, late just to see if one of them pick. Definitely a Jordan Howard would be somebody I'd be looking at. So
yeah, I think that's it's fair. I mean, quality, you could debate quality of situation, because if you want to invest in like the Miami running game, considering Ryan Fitzpatrick actually had the most rushing yards on the team last season, that's not even a joke. Right. He actually had the most. But looking at early best ball ADP prior to the move, Jordan Howard was sitting at running back 54 in best ball ADP on the FFPC. I don't have what his ADP moved to afterwards, but I don't think it was a significant jump ahead. He's still being drafted around like Matt Breida, Rashad Penny, Jamal Williams, Boston Scott, like some of those guys. And while I guess if we're talking season long, I might want Jordan Howard ahead of most of those guys, at least. But right now, since best ball is really the only other thing going on other than like dynasty startups, it seems to be about right. I feel that's about right, because before the draft, it's hard to figure out like if they're going to wind up drafting somebody ahead of him, because a lot of folks, I think it was this time last season, where everybody thought that, who was it? I believe it was Mike Davis, who got moved from the Seattle Seahawks to the Chicago Bears. I thought Mike Davis was going to be the guy, but then they went ahead and drafted David Montgomery, and David Montgomery immediately walked in and did his thing and took over that job, and Mike Davis saw nothing. Not to say that Jordan Howard profiles the same way, because Jordan Howard is probably like
right, but that's
4 or
still
5 years less.
Best ball making that decision today. Versus season long, where we're going to make this decision after everything
in August. I mean, it's again in August, assuming everything goes according to plan.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't even know what's going to go on there. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
But I think that's my only concern at this point, because if I had to guess, I would think that they would bring somebody else in. Right. They saw what they wanted to see. They had enough time to see what they wanted to see in Patrick Laird. The same thing for Myles Gaskin.
And I just like Jordan Howard. I know he's not flashy, but I think he has enough
the job done
in all the categories, and he's proven himself. He had one good season, on a crappy team. So we'll see. I mean, again, that's my point. That division is now a little exciting. There's some fantasy things going on. And
man, I really Miami's defense, not going to lie to you. We'll have to wait and see what the schedule looks like, but I could honestly see myself streaming Miami's defense at some point next season because of who they've picked up. I could honestly see
another reason I think Jordan Howard, I think their defense now is at the point where they can keep the game close, and Jordan Howard would be on the field 3 downs. But like I said, we'll see. I just kind of like that. The other big thing, obviously, the trade, which a lot of fantasy people said they would have vetoed if it would have happened in their leagues. But it's the David Johnson, DeAndre Hopkins trade. I don't know. Does this change either one of their fantasy outlook, better, worse, keeps them both the same? What's your opinion? Truly just talking about it as a fantasy deal, not real football.
Oh yeah. But for David Johnson, no, not much. And actually I was trying to look up real quick, and
I think it would have helped David Johnson if they still had DeAndre Hopkins.
That would have been much better if they still had it.
If he'd have gone to Houston where they still had a DeAndre Hopkins, it would be one thing, but he's actually gone. Obviously, if you had him as a keeper or anything like that, and you got a deal on him and you've still had him, I would think right now I'd rather know that he went to Houston, where I think they're going to use him, in Arizona where we didn't know they were going to use him at all.
Right.
So I actually think fantasy wise right now, it actually helps him, because I'm not sure the Cardinals were going to use him or even split time with him, or at least at Houston, he could be, maybe he gets the job back and is a 3-down guy, which to me, we've had this discussion a lot. I'm always I pump up around or so a guy that I think has a shot at being a down, all 3 downs and not being taken off the field.
Yeah, I think so. And I was trying to make sure if Carlos Hyde was still on the roster, but I guess Carlos Hyde was a free agent to begin with, so he has no team at the moment. But either way, I think David Johnson, from a fantasy perspective, like while the quality of the situation is not great, we'll see like what type of scoring opportunities he has. But from a volume perspective,
in best ball, what's his ADP right now?
David compared
to Jordan Howard.
For DJ, I've seen him go somewhere in the like 6th, 7th round, if I'm not mistaken, like 6 to 8. Would
you rather
range.
Have David Johnson, or would you rather have Jordan Howard?
I'd rather have David Johnson.
See, I'd rather have both of them. Back to my thing. If I went wide receiver,
you didn't say that was an option.
I know. Well, but I you know me. I'm allowed to change my mind.
If you told me that was an option, yes, I would have said both.
Well, that's my point. I think if you start at wide receiver, and then maybe a running back, and then come back in a couple of rounds and grab Howard and David Johnson. Hey, I take a chance on that.
I don't mind that. Again, you have to try and factor in quality of situation. So now we already talked about Jordan Howard, his quality of situation and the lack of scoring opportunities we would think for somebody that's going to be rushing for the Miami Dolphins. You would also have to take quality of situation into account for the Houston Texans. So now if they don't have a dominant wide receiver one that's going to push them into scoring position, we don't know what their wide receiver 2 situation is going to look like, because we think that should be Will Fuller, but Will Fuller hasn't played a full 16-game season since ever.
He's been in. I don't think he has he?
I don't think it's possible. And so really your reliable weapons are now Randall Cobb, David Johnson, Duke Johnson, Kiki Kuti, Darren Fells, and Jordan Akins. That's what the Texans have right now. That's what they have to work with.
You're Deshaun Watson keeper guy right now. You're a little worried,
right? It is it's hard for me to look at Deshaun Watson's like dynasty value, because that's been the talk of the town like since the trade, and not try and advocate for like a couple other quarterbacks to be pushed ahead of him. Because even with Deshaun Watson as a rusher, again, how can we project him to throw for even 25 plus touchdowns next season? That's going to be difficult to project. Now on the plus side, their defense hasn't really gotten any better. So, I mean, we could see them being pushed into shootouts or negative game scripts that will force production, but it's all tied to Deshaun. Like, how healthy is Deshaun? But other than that, I mean, the assumption is that they're going to, they have to draft a wide receiver at this point, whether it's a Denzel Mims, I think, Jalen Reagor, or any of the top prospects. But I think that for David Johnson, I think his role, assuming health, if you want to try and tie it back to his poor production being that he was hurt for the back half of the season, and that now he should be fresh.
They'll get healthy though.
Right.
He almost the season off. They didn't.
Right. He did. So, we're hoping that he'll be back and ready to roll. But I think that his price at this point is fair. But on the flip side, DeAndre Hopkins, you got to push him down a little bit, right? There's no way that we can assume that he's going to continue to see. He was seeing 25 to 30% target share in the Texans offense because of the people that I listed were sitting behind him. But now you go to a team that has Larry Fitzgerald, that has Christian Kirk. Already 2 fairly established wide receivers that soak up 100 to 150 targets apiece already. How can you assume that DeAndre Hopkins is going to walk in and also get 150 targets as well that he's gotten for the past umpteen seasons with almost every single quarterback, that old and shitty quarterback that's played in the NFL? Right.
Well, Deshaun Watson is one of those quarterbacks in some of the 2 quarterback leagues I'm in. He was taken in the first couple of rounds. I'm assuming now he's going to be taken in late rounds, meaning he's going to fall a bunch, in my opinion. So
he's been perennially like the quarterback 3. I would say that. Well, I think it's probably quarterback 2 over the past couple of seasons after Patrick Mahomes came onto the scene, and then now it's like Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, and then Deshaun Watson. But now I can't make the case for Deshaun Watson over, let's say, somebody like Russell Wilson. I can't make the case for Deshaun Watson over somebody like, let's say, even Dak Prescott. It's hard for me to push him over a guy like Dak Prescott.
No.
So it's just so now we're looking at
last year in a 2 quarterback league, he'd have been your first quarterback. Now this year he might be your second if you take someone late. Maybe you take one good guy and you go, I'll take a shot, see what happens.
Right, maybe quarterback 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there.
I think even lower. I
think
in a single quarterback league,
I'm not drafting him.
12 team, he might, right? He's not even going to go drafted. So if he's not going to go in the top, if he's not going to go in the top 12, even in 2 quarterback league, he's probably not going to go in the top 12.
I'll root for him. I've always rooted for Deshaun.
Kenyon Drake on the opposite of this end. The Arizona's, kind of committing to him.
You have to wonder if they draft somebody.
Yeah, I know. Makes it
UDFA. Hard. They tendered him, sure, and they gave him a decent contract. But the only one behind them is Chase Edmonds, who's I want to say just barely over 200 pounds. So right. It's just the two of them, and neither of them really produced over long or at least extended periods of time. Kenyon Drake didn't show up until the back half of the season, so you have to assume that they bring in somebody of notable draft capital. I would say. But a day 2, day 3 pick, which for a running back is still fairly significant. In that, they should have somebody available in order to take over if Kenyon Drake starts to falter. But I think Kenyon Drake gets first crack at the job, and he should after the way that he played last season, outplaying David Johnson outright. But without seeing what they do in the draft, there's nothing other. Yeah, it's hard to say at this point. It's a similar situation to Jordan Howard. It's a similar situation to when we were talking about Buffalo earlier to a guy like Devin Singletary. Who's to say they don't bring in somebody?
I don't know. I like right now that I like the fact that they didn't go after any running backs in the free agents market. Yeah, right. Doesn't mean they don't draft one.
Yep, that's all we're waiting on.
Right now I think Singletary's kind of their main guy. I don't see that they didn't do anything else, so we'll see.
Right.
Which makes this time of year fun.
All the speculation.
We'll come back to players because you kind of brought it up when you said if we have a season or if everything goes as planned. Obviously, the big talk in the last day or two was changing the draft date. Coaches and ownership want to change it. The NFL says nope. That they're going to make it. They're not going to change their schedule. Do you think that's smart?
Yeah, I think so. Not changing because the draft, if they'd already made the decision that they're not going to do a live thing, it's just going to be virtual. I don't see what moving the draft back is going to do. The coach, all the teams, other than medicals, if they could find a way, if they're trying to stall so that teams could get their doctors or have players come in for last minute workouts or whatever, if that's their reasoning, I get that. Because if they wanted, if Miami wants to check in on Tua, and check his medicals or whomever is interested in Tua because of the hip thing. I get that. Any of the guys that didn't run at the combine, any of the guys from smaller schools that might have been interested, they have a scouting report on a guy from a smaller school and they want to check him out. And they don't have the access to do that.
Right. The player has the right, may not want to fly. A lot of things. I'm personally a little just, with every other sporting event, every other league, including the Olympics, it's affected.
Right.
Football right now is saying not us. I don't like that. I think right now, and it wouldn't hurt football one iota to say we're going to move everything a month. Meaning we'll figure out the scheduling, we'll figure out, this and that. Just move everything 1 month. That's 4 weeks. And then, so we have a Super Bowl, the 1st of March. Do you care? I don't. For fantasy wise, I would rather that for fantasy than us going into this not knowing that, at the last minute things are changing. And like you said, I don't care. Even if my problem is even if the draft takes place, I got a feeling many camps aren't. I got a feeling, some of that stuff isn't. So why have the draft if you can't do the other stuff yet?
Right. Because you already know, as we mentioned earlier, that even once players do get assigned to their teams, it's not like they can go to the facility. It's not like they can start training. It's not like they can meet with their coordinators.
Right. Right now, the league has closed all offices except for medical personnel and essential personnel. So I don't get it. I don't know scheduling wise how hard it is, but at the same time, this is a time where you just make it happen, and if someone bitches because this year and we'll stay in the conference. So this year, for some weird reason, Miami goes and plays in Buffalo, but they can't reschedule the right date to play it in Miami. So they go play it somewhere in Alabama. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this is the year you have to do that. You have to do that, you figure it out. But I think if they just came out now and said, here's what we're going to do, we're at least going to move it a month. We're going to move it 4 weeks. We'll figure out the schedule. We'll see what we can do schedule wise. And then if we have to move it more, we will. I don't know. It just seems crazy that they're the only sport. Of all of them right now, they're the ones going, no, we'll be fine. We're going to let people be at the draft. So what? Then don't have it. It's an event.
Yeah.
It's an event. I don't care. I mean, I know, there's a lot of things going on now about how the draft's going to take place and all that, but it's still not going to be the same. It's not going to be
because the geek in me wants to get more shots of that war room. I want to see who's in the room when those decisions are made. But right. I'm sure, like, if teams know that that's what the NFL is pressing for, because they want to make the spectacle as grand, or at least as close to as grand as it would have been had they had it on the Las Vegas Strip, so on and so forth. So they want to try and create that drama. They want to try and create that tension and show people like what's actually going on behind the scenes. But teams aren't going to let them behind the curtains. I mean, they're not gonna, I mean, at best we'll see Jerry Jones sitting in the big seat, like making the call, or maybe one of his kids.
I think now they're going to do it in rooms. It's kind of crazy what they're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, especially because of social distancing, it's not like there's going to be like the full squad is going to be like in a room together, like right. talking amongst themselves, making those decisions.
I don't know why. And to me, right now, that's the only thing you have to move. Just move the draft 4 weeks, and let the NFL know. And we're going to, in a couple of weeks, we're going to decide if we're going to move the whole season, and even if you just say, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to move the first 4 games, meaning we're not going to change the whole schedule. We're going to take the first 4 games of everybody and put them at the end. And we're going to try to make the schedule work the best we can. And you're like I said, if you got to play at, Georgia Tech instead of, in Atlanta Falcons State, meaning just change 4 games. You know what I'm saying? You don't even have to change the whole schedule.
Well, maybe they're just pressing forward with it because they don't know when. I mean, like everybody else in the country, they don't know when there's going to be a final decision as to when everybody can start getting back together.
But what we do know is April's going to be closed. I don't know. I don't care what anybody says.
But they don't know if May is going to be open or not. They don't know if June is going to be open or not. So why not just do it now?
My argument is just April closing. That's enough to me that the NFL needs, I don't know. Their argument might be,
I'm assuming
we might as well have a live draft, but
I'd be surprised if it's not already being discussed amongst the owners right now anyway.
The owners have already come out and said they want it changed.
Yeah, but I'm saying I'm just saying that enough pressure is going to be placed on Goodell for him to just change it.
Right. There's just so much money in stake. There's just so and I get it. They're not the only league. Every league is having problems.
Yeah.
I mean, it hurts everybody. But my argument, to make the pain less, change it now so that people know what's going to happen, or at least have an idea, and then the effect is less. Versus if you just keep rolling like nothing's going to happen, and then what's going to happen is we're going to lose May, and then finally in June they're going to go, well, you know what, blah blah. Next thing you know, I don't know. To me, if you move it 4 weeks now, we have a better shot at the season not being interrupted. Then
maybe they've already, passed the point of no return because they have less than a month to figure it out. I mean,
right. I agree. So, they'll have to figure out something.
Yeah.
Maybe their argument is they just don't think the draft, I don't want to use the word important, but that if the draft happens, I'm assuming they're going to get paid the same by ESPN and all the other people. It's just,
yeah.
Now, I don't even know now ESPN can't, how do they do it? Obviously ESPN now would have a couple of announcers talking about the picks, but they'd have to almost have a camera and a reporter at everybody's room, and go in and talk to them. You're not going to be able to talk to players unless. But
see, ESPN, they can't be the only one, because then NFL Network would need to have one. Right. CBS would need to have one.
And and again, I remember right. The one I enjoyed the most last year was what's the fantasy site that Collinsworth is
PFF.
Yeah, they had
theirs was good
coverage. I thought they had really good coverage. So
yeah, I thought theirs was good.
I enjoyed that one. So I don't know. It's just a little nuts, and I said,
I mean, just the times they are changing.
Yeah. What do you think about the Saints? The Saints gave up a quarterback, got a quarterback that's going to stay, and now have Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah. I mean, Teddy moving on, I figured was going to be the case when they placed the tender on Taysom Hill. That when Drew Brees announced he was coming back, they put the tender on Taysom Hill. That means Teddy had to go. I mean, that's musical chairs, right? I mean, Taysom and Drew took the two chairs, and Teddy was the last odd man out. It's awesome that Teddy found his way to Carolina, even though, I mean, on the bad side, that marked the end of Cam Newton, but we're sticking in New Orleans for the time being. I like the signing of Emmanuel Sanders, but more from a tactical perspective. That's not really all that great for fantasy, because if you think about it, I mean, Michael Thomas is just an absolute ball hog. I mean, he had over 140, 150 targets last season. Jared Cook, he was, I mean, just an absolute beast down the stretch in the playoffs, at least 60 yards per game, I believe, in their playoff run. So he's also been playing well. Alvin Kamara with his pass catching ability out of the backfield. I mean, so you've got three already established players and targets for Drew Brees. Emmanuel Sanders essentially becomes like the third or fourth guy on the depth chart for getting targets from Drew Brees.
He's going to be the number 2 guy right off the bat.
No, I mean, and replace who? Kamara? No. Cook? No.
He's going to be the number 2 wide receiver. That's all.
And what value does that have? I mean, they've had a wide receiver 2 in New Orleans for almost 5 seasons now. Whether it's been Ted Ginn, whether it's been Traquan Smith, I mean, it doesn't matter. None of the wide receiver 2 position in New Orleans has not been fantasy fruitful. I mean, we want to try and get these pieces from offenses that have good quarterbacks, but from a fantasy perspective, the wide receiver 2 in New Orleans has not been as fruitful as we'd hoped it to be. Since Michael Thomas has come in, that wide receiver 2 position hasn't really netted us much value. It's been Michael Thomas, it's been Jared Cook, it's been Alvin Kamara, it's been Mark Ingram, another running back. I mean, when 2 running backs have now wind up supplanting any wide receiver value other than the wide receiver 1, I mean, there really isn't that much value in the wide receiver 2 position. Emmanuel Sanders will be on the field. Don't get me wrong. That's why I said it's more of a real football tactical signing than it being something good for fantasy football. I'm not biting on him.
All right. Will you bite on Devin Funchess then?
Going to Green Bay? Sure.
Yeah.
Another tight end? Why not?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think I like that better than any other tight end that would go there.
Yeah, I mean, well, they got Jimmy Graham on top of that too. So they got enough big guys for him to throw to, but they still, I don't understand the signing when Robbie Anderson was dangled out there in free agency, when Brashad Perryman was out there in free agency, and what they'd lacked was a deep.
Well, I think they like their
field stretching.
I think they like their 2 young wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, but Alan Lazard, I mean, sure, he was starting to come on late in the season, but he was erratic. And while I know Aaron Rodgers said he liked him,
we've seen
sure, but Aaron Rodgers and younger wide receivers just don't seem to mix.
Years, I mean, I just know that they like them, and I think and Rodgers
like them. But Aaron Rodgers doesn't like them. That's all that matters.
Aaron Rodgers likes them. I don't think that's. I disagree. I think Aaron Rodgers is fine with them.
I don't think he likes. I think a report came out specifically naming Marquez Valdez-Scantling as being in the doghouse with him. Equanimous St. Brown.
I don't count him. I do agree. He's out of the mix. But they have they have a young wide receiver core. Robbie Anderson going to the Panthers. I don't know. I won't own much Panthers next year either. I'm a little worried there.
Yeah, it's more of I mean, you get DJ Moore, you get Christian McCaffrey. If you want to draft Teddy Bridgewater as your QB2, I can get behind that. Past
Bridgewater or Watson? Who would you take first, Bridgewater or Watson?
Deshaun Watson?
Yeah,
Deshaun Watson, easy.
Over Bridgewater?
Yeah, easy, because Watson runs, Bridgewater does not. At least comparatively speaking. But
Yeah.
Watson still has production.
But Sean Watson hasn't run a ton.
No, he ran enough. I mean, enough in order to get more value. Yeah, in order to get more value than Teddy Bridgewater.
All right. I kind of agree with you. I don't think I'd draft either one of them. So
I won't take Deshaun Watson at his price, but if forced to choose between the two, yeah, I will take Deshaun Watson over Teddy Bridgewater.
All right. What's happening with the Jaguars? What are the Jaguars doing?
Minshew mania. I mean, that's what they're doing. Did you see they got our tight end too?
Or do you really think? Do you think they're going to take one of these other quarterbacks that's now out there?
A later one. It's not going to be one of the early ones.
Or Cam Newton or one of those.
No, if they were to, I'd be really surprised if he wound up in Jacksonville. I'm not going to say that it's impossible, not going to happen. It might be one of those guys. I'd be really surprised.
Their offensive coordinator was with the Bengals back when Andy Dalton played well.
Well, yeah. Well, that's why they got Tyler Eifert.
Well, I know that's my point. I mean,
the piece is set up.
I think if the Bengals were, I didn't pay much attention today. I don't think anything happened with Cam. But if Andy Dalton was actually cut instead of the Bengals wanting to trade him, do you think they'd pick him up?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think for the value that he brings, and also he wouldn't come in as like a legitimate no-brainer, like he's going to start over Gardner Minshew. Very much in the same way that Nick Foles going from Jacksonville to Chicago.
Andy Dalton to me is a ton better than Nick Foles.
Oh yeah, I agree. I'm not disagreeing there. I'm saying the perception of the signing wouldn't indicate that he's going to be their de facto starter. I think it's Gardner Minshew for the time being. They would bring in an established veteran like an Andy Dalton to work behind him, and in case he falters, then they have somebody to quickly replace him. A Cam Newton signing in Jacksonville doesn't make a ton of sense to me because the amount of money that they would have to sign Cam Newton for would probably have to essentially mean that he's going to be their starter.
See, I disagree. I think right now Cam Newton's gotten a wake-up call, and I think after a little bit of negotiation, he's going to find out that he's not going to get starter quarterback money. Then why take it in Jacksonville? If you're going to sit behind somebody, why not? I would go to New Orleans. No, to be a starter. I think he would take less money to be a starter in Jacksonville than to be a backup, somewhere else.
No, I don't think he would go sign anywhere to be a backup, to be quite honest. I think he should just retire.
Well, if he's healthy, I think he'll play. I don't think he's going to retire. I think now he has something to prove. I personally now think he's more valuable as a quarterback than he was, and especially if you get him a deal. If the Bengals cut Andy Dalton and signed Cam Newton, I'd be fine with that.
That's not going to happen.
I know. But
that is one I will say that is not going to happen.
What I'm just saying. I would buy into that. I would buy into Cam for the Bengals for a year or two while our rookie sits behind and then be done.
I'm going to say I don't want that.
You'd rather have Andy Dalton?
No, I'd rather have Joe Burrow.
You and these rookies.
No, I want Cam to go somewhere where he can compete for a Super Bowl. He's not doing that in Cincinnati, man.
I can't think of a Super Bowl team that wants him.
Chargers.
Nah.
Chargers could do it. The Chargers could easily. I mean, they slot Cam into there. I know it's not the right move for them because of the contracts that they have coming up. I think in 2021 they have 5 players that they need to re-sign or pay on their defense. Their defense is stocked. They still have Keenan Allen in his prime. Hunter Henry entering or going into his prime. They still have a good running back in Austin Eckler. Offensive line is decent. They're fine with having Tyrod Taylor play, and Cam Newton is just Tyrod Taylor plus. So if they're fine with Tyrod Taylor playing and they want to compete, they bring in Cam, Super Bowl contender. Right. I think. But I would rather, and when I say I want Cam to retire, I want him to retire a la Carson Palmer. Retire, get your mind right, get your body right, and then take a year off and come back. The dude is 32 years old. He can come back in a year 32? And still. Yeah, Cam Newton's not that old.
No, you say 32. I didn't think he's 32. I thought he was only 29, 30 years old. I wouldn't have thought.
At best, I think he's 31 or he's going to be 32. He could retire, come back in a year, and still have 5 years left to play.
5 years. Like I said, it depends. Now, quarterback. Well, running quarterbacks aren't playing until they're 40 or 45 yet.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If he admits the fact that he can no longer put his body in that sort of position, he becomes more of a pocket passer, like Russell Wilson has now done. then he can wind up playing for another 5 years, or at the very least another 3 years.
If he's not on a team at the beginning of the season, do you think he'll play at all?
No.
All right.
Because what team is going to sign him like midway through the season? I mean, what catastrophic...
Somebody who has a quarterback injury or
something. I mean, something catastrophic would have to happen in order for him to sign, and it would have to be the right situation for him.
What's starting quarterback right now is similar enough where if Cam was the backup, that if he would go down, Cam would fit in.
Lamar Jackson.
So Cam, which now I think about it, they cut RG3, didn't they?
Nah, I don't know if they cut him or not. I'd be surprised if they let him walk. He's one cheap and two at least a decent facsimile.
What about Winston? Are we going to see him as a quarterback anywhere?
Have him go to the Patriots.
You think?
Why not?
I think the Patriots. That's my point. Who would you rather have, Winston or Cam?
No, the Patriots would probably be easy.
No, not the Patriots. If you were starting a team today and those are your only two options, who would
Cam or Jameis?
Yeah,
Cam, easy.
Yeah, me too. That's why I don't know why. I mean, why would the Patriots want Jameis Winston if they could just get Cam for a year?
Oh, that's just rumors. I don't know if the Patriots actually do or not. I'd be honestly surprised.
You say rumors. The experts are more saying they think that the Patriots like who they have. They like the young kid.
Stidham, Jarrett Stidham, and they just brought Brian Hoyer back. Hoyer the Destroyer.
Yeah, Hoyer's just a backup. We know that. I don't think that's for.
Yeah, his starting days are over.
Yeah, and there's a lot of rumors that Dalton was going to go there, but
which I would have liked. To be quite honest with you.
Again, we have different opinions. I'm just not a. I mean, I'm just the Bengals. I just don't like the Burrow pick. That's not gonna settle with me. And trust me, I hope it works. I think they're gonna do it. I hope it works, and he's great, but I just think they need more than a quarterback. And there's enough. This was the year where there was enough good quarterbacks out there that you could have bought into one of them and still take a different pick here, or trade this pick and get a couple other first round picks and beef stuff up. I just think there was more options out there, but the Bengals just don't see it that way. And they want to sell tickets. And I think they think Burrow's going to sell tickets, but
I think so.
We'll
see.
I
could honestly see myself going to see a game.
And what do you think about, the last thing, Marcus Mariota? You think, how far in the season do you think he'll be the starter there at the Raiders?
Yeah. That would probably take, that would also take an injury.
You think it'd take an injury? I don't think so. I think right now the trigger's pretty short on a
short leash, but I think that it would likely take an injury in order for Gruden to move on. I don't think it's because unless I know that the comparison I think is weak and also like reeks of recency bias, but for Marcus Mariota to not necessarily reinvent himself, but become the guy that we had hoped that he was going to be with when Ryan Tannehill came on and actually took over the job for him, I just don't see that happening. It's hard for me to believe that Marcus Mariota is still that guy, or at least what we had wanted him to be when like him and Jameis first came out, where he was that dual threat quarterback that he could thread the needle and all that. I just don't see that happening. But I do think that he could work within structure and take a few more chances, more so than a guy like Derek Carr. But I don't think he's the guy that's going to wind up winning the job outright. At least not the way that he ended his time in Tennessee. It'll take a lot more I need to see a lot more for me to believe that.
But like I said, it's back to my thing with the Bengals. You have Winston out there, a number 1 or number 2 pick. I forget who won that year. Mariota, no good. Cam's not, didn't do anything. My point is, it's just as easy that Burrow doesn't do anything. That's my point. Bengals trade that pick, and let Washington get another quarterback. They got like 9 of them now, don't they? Didn't they?
Well, yeah, because they just picked up another.
And they got like 9 running backs now.
Yeah, they picked up J.D. McKissick. They still have Bryce Love and Darius Geis. They've got Adrian
Barber.
Peterson.
They got Barber.
Yeah, they got Peyton Barber. Yep.
Pretty exciting. Mr. Chris Allen, we killed an hour, sir, talking about fantasy football and
we always do.
Really odd time of our lives. And you know what? Again, we're not experts on any viruses or anything like that. And
I'm not an epidemiologist.
I'm no expert in fantasy football, but you are. And I'm glad we could kill an hour and maybe entertain somebody or help somebody out. But now's the time where you tell me where every single article you have, what podcasts other than this one you're doing, what's going on in your life.
As of right now, I think we're just trying to get through all the craziness right now. But I am still doing some Dynasty work, doing some quick analysis like through mailbag questions over at Dynasty League Football DLF. Still have the other Dynasty podcast, the Dynasty Owners Manual. We've been doing that fairly regularly, at least once a week. But most of my attention is now turning over to best ball. I do have a free agency article in the works where I'm actually going to start taking a look at Teddy Bridgewater because there's just a lot of intrigue with what's going on between the connections to the incoming staff, the Temple connections there, like going back to his college days. I mean, and all that. So I'm trying to break that down, and I should have an article out within the next week or so on that, and like the free agency impact of Teddy Bridgewater going to the Panthers. Best ball is still on my radar. I'm up to probably I think 10 drafts already in the past month or so, and I'm probably going to chill until the draft, and then I'm just going to hit it hard right after the draft is done, and we'll see what ADP kind of shakes out. But you'll see me posting up some stuff about things that I'm finding in terms of ADP and all that throughout the week. So most of my stuff is over at 4for4. Some of my other side projects will be over at Dynasty League Football, so you can find me there.
Well, good. And my goal originally was we were going every other week, and starting in April, we'd go back to weekly. But we'll play that by ear as long as the draft and everything doesn't move. Probably in April, which I think based on that, we'll be off next week. And then the next week would be our first April show. And then we'll just roll with probably every Wednesday unless the NFL does something crazy or changes things. And, we can fill an hour and, we'll go from there.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks again. People, wash your hands.
Yes.
It's the best 20 seconds of your day, just over and over and over. But, happy birthday twice. That's what I'm learning. Sing happy birthday twice, and, you get right through it. Sportscrew Radio Network, Mr. Lou Lander's a lot of baseball stuff, and now he's doing a lot of his early fantasy football stuff. So, look out for him and his shows out there. And we appreciate Lou for letting us, be on and come and do this weekly or bi-weekly and soon to be weekly. So like I said, Chris, be safe, be careful, take it easy. Mm-hmm. Working at home, can be boring, but I got confidence in you.
All right, we'll make it happen.
Yeah. Smoke stuff. Go out and smoke a lot of stuff.
I already posted something from Saturday. I was up at 5:00 in the morning on Saturday to smoke a pork butt. And we were having pulled pork sandwiches by about 6 or 7 that evening.
I baked bread for the first time in a long time. I've used to bake bread a lot when I was, a young man. Mm-hmm. I made a couple loaves of bread.
That's awesome.
Posted them on Twitter. Oh man, nothing like when you open bread from the store, that heel I throw away. But when you bake bread, that heel,
the smell,
when the bread is warm, that heel holds a lot of butter. But I wanted to make sure I could survive. I have enough yeast and some flour, and I was able to make bread.
Yeah, so, we need flour. That's our thing. We've been doing the same with our bread maker.
Yeah. No, bread
maker. We cheat with the bread maker.
I didn't cheat, baby. These hands needed some dough.
Oh, look at you.
And the dough needed me. Yeah. I'm just saying. I did the whole.
You took it. You did the whole thing.
And I'll tell you, I have tried the bread maker route. Mm-hmm. There's a huge difference. It's not the same. Is it edible bread? Yes. Is it good bread? Yes. But there's a difference. It's just different. So, but I'm just saying. So I did that. I also made, for the first time ever, it turned out delicious. I made fish and chips. I made a beer batter, fish. Oh, it was, and I don't even like fish. My father-in-law likes, deep fried fish. I got me some haddock. And so I'm working on the baking and doing some stuff in the house. Okay. I haven't really broke out the smoker yet this year. Okay. So, but cooking cooking's fun this time. I mean, again, survival,
yeah.
if you got to cook, that's a good thing, I guess.
Good way to take your mind off things for a little while.
And the beer batter fish, the recipe, I found a place where, it worked out perfect. It literally was puffy, looked like something you'd get at a restaurant or a store. It was, and I don't like it, but it was good. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a fish guy, but this was good. So,
all right.
There you go. They're just trying to help everybody, take up cooking while you're stuck in the house. Make beer. You can brew some beer. Maybe you can.
I'll be doing that this weekend.
Yeah. So, I talked to Joey and said something about maybe now's the time I should get back into it again since it's been a while.
Hey, why not?
I keep going back and forth. I hate cleaning. You want to clean my shit for me? Then I'll start brewing again.
No way. That's the worst part. But,
that is the worst part.
It has to be done.
All right, everybody. Thanks for being here, Chris. I will catch you in 2 weeks. And you know what? We'll continue this what will be going on in our 4th season, I think.
I think so.
Isn't that exciting? Yeah. We don't even like each other, but we're going to stay together. That's what makes it nice.
We make it work.
Yes, all right. Say goodnight.
Good night.
This has been Just a Fantasy Fan podcast. And to keep your fantasies going, follow us at justafantasyfan.com. Say goodnight. Good night.